Many third-party add-ons allow you to extend Elementor's capabilities, but they are not all created equal. So in today's episode, let's take a look at Essential Addons for Elementor and whether or not it's something
you should consider.
Hello, I'm your host Carousel. I'm a digital alchemist, and today we'll take a look at the Essential Addons for Elementor. Elementor Pro is one of the best WordPress plugins out there. It features a page builder, a theme builder, and amazing widgets to help you create beautiful websites. Now, whatever you do, I strongly encourage you to get Elementor Pro before considering any add-ons. Because think about it. Without Elementor Pro, there would be no money to pay Elementor employees, and without employees, there wouldn't be an Elementor at all. That being said, once you have Elementor Pro, it's nice to use add-ons to extend its capabilities. I've personally tried a bunch of those, and as I said in the intro, they are not all created equal. Now, one thing I love about Essential Addons for Elementor is that it combines quantity with quality. Something else I love about this add-on is the fact that they really focus on performance. Now, apparently, they rewrote the code so that it's really performing well, it's really lightweight, and of course, you can deactivate the widgets and the extensions that you don't need. And apparently, it's working really well with Elementor so that if you use it correctly, you shouldn't notice any difference and any impact on your website. Now, as always, you will find affiliate links in the description of this episode. Now, we've got a lot of ground to cover today, so grab a cup of coffee or tea if you prefer.
And let's dive in.
Okay, so we are on the Essential Addons for Elementor website. And if you recall, not too long ago, I created a video about website trends for this year, and they're covering many of the trends. So if you haven't seen that video, I invite you to check the playlist in the description of this episode. Okay, so we have a lot of ground to cover, as I just mentioned. So let's start with the element demo. So first, we're going to cover the content element, and I'm going to go quickly on each and every element. And if you're interested, I might cover specific elements in later videos. So let's start with the info box. So this is the info box, and well, there's already kind of a similar widget in Elementor Pro. So, you know, at first I was like, yeah, I don't really see what's the difference. And it's just the subtle hovers, but honestly, you can create that in Elementor Pro. So this widget alone is not really something I would pick essential add-ons for. Okay, now let's take a look at the flip box. So the flip box, once again, we have something pretty similar in Elementor Pro, so I won't spend too much time on this one. And just like the previous one, this is not something that would make me buy Essential Addons for Elementor. Next, let's take a look at creative buttons. So the creative buttons is something that I really enjoy. Okay, you can achieve the same effects with some JavaScript or some CSS, but to be honest, once you're in a project, you have a lot of things to cover, and it can be quite handy to have available widgets just for that. And I kind of like the animations. Of course, I prefer to use it a bit differently. I prefer to style it the way that I like, and matching the project, of course. But it's really neat, and this is really something that I enjoy. And actually, I've started implementing it in already a couple of projects. So I think I'm going to use it in a few projects. And as you can see, there's a lot of different effects. And it's handy because they gave very specific nicknames for each effect. So it's kind of easy to remember which one you prefer instead of effect number 1, effect number 2. So this is definitely a plus and something I really enjoy in the package. Next, we have the static product. So let's take a look at the static product. To be honest, I don't really see what it does because there's a hover on the image. If I click, I'll land on another page. And if I click here, I land on another page. So I have to spend a little more time with this and play with all the settings, but there's so many widgets to cover today that I can't really do that in one video. And as I said, I might cover it in future videos. Okay, so now let's take a look at the team member widget. So this is a team member widget. I like the fact that we have different versions. Here we have the hover version where you see the social icons, or you can have the social icons just underneath the picture and the name. Well, to be honest, this is not the styling that I like, but I'm pretty sure there are many settings so I could style it exactly the way I want. The word is social today, so you want to be able to easily add this. Now, of course, you could just add an image, add a title, add a subtitle, and then the social icons all in Elementor or Elementor Pro, but it's nice to have it in one widget. Next, let's take a look at the team member carousel. So the team member carousel is basically a carousel and it seems to be working well, but one thing that I missed here in the demo, and I don't know if the option exists in the backend, so I'll have to go and dig deeper, but I would like the carousel to stop when I hover over an image, because for example, if I want to click on the Facebook icon here, you know, it moves too fast, so I have to go and hurry for it. And here there's only 3 items, so it's okay. I'll just wait a couple of seconds and then it's coming back. But just imagine that you have 10 items in the carousel. You're not going to wait 10 seconds or even 5 seconds to go and click on that Facebook icon. So I really hope that they've implemented that feature or that they will implement it in the future. Next, let's take a look at the logo carousel. So once again, it's a carousel, as you could have guessed. So the first one is actually not moving. So let's look at this one. You can just click on the arrows, and the next one you can click on the dots. Actually like the styling on this one, and this one moves on its own. And here, as you can see, so I'm hovering over the image. I think we have the same comment that I had in the previous widget. I would like the carousel to stop when I hover over the image. Now, aesthetically, I think this one is really clean because, you know, all logos have a different shape. They don't have the same height, they have different colors. So this looks really good because it makes everything organized. Okay, so now let's take a look at the dual color heading. Now, I don't believe that you have an equivalent in Elementor Pro, and there are actually many situations where you may want to use a dual color headline. So it's very straightforward. If you need 2 colors, this is the widget that you need. Next, let's take a look at the Testimonials widget. So here's the Testimonials widget. Now, to be honest, it's already a testimonial widget in Elementor, and I think it's really nice. I mean, I don't really see what it does different here. Maybe you can tell me in the comments. But once again, this is not something that would make me purchase Essential Add-ons for Elementor. But as I said, there are many of the widgets that actually made me purchase Essential Add-ons for Elementor. So don't take me wrong. But this specific one, I don't really see, you know, what's the big deal with it. Next, we have the Testimonial Slider. So here is the Testimonial Slider. Now, right off the bat, I don't really like the styling too much. You know, in my opinion, you should always have some padding between the elements and the borders because it looks more classy, more high-end. Now, it's a matter of personal taste, but at the same time, it's also something that you can quickly recognize if you look at luxury brands or even, you know, not just luxury brands, but if you want to have a very modern and classy image, this is something I would do. I would add more padding, but this is not something that has to do with the testimonial slider. This is just the settings that the developer or the designer is going to implement. So this is something I would do. I would add more space. Now, we're not here to talk about that, so let's take a look. Once again, I think it's very simple. I think you could achieve that with you could achieve that in Elementor Pro actually. So once again, this is not something that would make me purchase Essential Add-ons for Elementor, but it's nice to have. Next, let's take a look at the Advanced Accordion. So this is the Advanced Accordion, and basically it's an accordion widget, nothing special. I like the fact that you can add icons here just before the title, but you know, something I would never do is just use one of the accordion widgets, not just in Essential Add-ons for Elementor, but in all the other widgets. Usually, I don't really like the styling that they use, so I will always tweak the styling to my liking. Now, it's a matter of personal taste. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that I don't see anything fancy here. Whereas you can really play with the box shadow, you can play with the colors. So it's up to you really. Now, usually when it comes to accordions, people love it or hate it. I think it can be very useful, especially when you're on the mobile and there's a lot of content and you don't want to keep scrolling down just to find the piece of information that you're looking for. So especially in that case, I think that accordions and toggles are really useful. Okay, so now let's take a look at the advanced tabs. So these are the advanced tabs, and contrary to what I just said for the accordions and the toggles, this one is really neat. I mean, I really like the thin line with the active color here. I think it's really neat, and I can see myself using it actually in a project I'm working on right now. Now, here you also have the vertical style. And once again, I would add more padding around the elements and the text. Then we have the nested tabs, and I think this one is very nice. So this is the normal content. Then you have the nested vertical tabs. And you may think it's too much, but actually in some projects, you have a lot of info and you want to make things look very simple to the eye, to the person visiting the website. And this is actually a good way to categorize the content and make it easily available while still looking simple. Sorry. So this is the nested vertical tab, and you can also have a nested horizontal tab like this. So once again, make sure that there is a need to use this kind of setup, but I think it's very handy, especially when you need it. And as you can imagine,
I need it.
I kind of like this one also. I think it's very nice. Same here. So you have a few here. You can add images. You can add a lot of different things in there. In my opinion, this one really stands out. It's simple. It's minimal, but to me, it's very beautiful. And I always like when I can start from a beautiful foundation and then I can work on it. But this one, I could use it just like that. I think it's really clean. And of course, I will match the colors of the project I'm working on. Now, let's have a look at the content toggle. So this is the content toggle, and I'm sure you've seen that on many websites. When by just switching the toggle, you can have the unlimited or limited pricing. You can also have table elements between a content toggle, and you can also use an overlay style or a simple style. It's pretty handy. Maybe not in this case because let's face it, if you want to hover over it, then you already have the icons, but you get the idea. You could really play with it, and especially if you're selling products and you want to show different state of the product, I think this is very brilliant. Next, let's take a look at the protected content widget. So this one is pretty straightforward. Here we have a section that is password protected, and we're going to submit the password. And once we do that, there you go. We see the content here. So you may find some use cases where you want to use that, and it's always nice to have. Now let's take a look at the Tooltip widget. So once we hover over an element here, or you click on it, you can see tooltips. You can style the color, and also you can also add more than a few words. As you can see here, we have a full paragraph. So that's pretty handy, especially when you want to show some infographics, and when you're on the mobile version, it's kind of difficult to show everything, and it doesn't really work in responsive mode. So you could also use just the main images and then use tooltips. But that's just one of the use cases. But even on desktop, there are many use cases for that, and I like the fact that Essential Add-ons added it to their package. Next, let's take a look at the off-canvas widget. So if you know my channel, you know that I've already covered a few ways to add some off-canvas content, but I like it here because you don't only get the slide effects, you also get different effects like the reveal effects. So this is a page template, this is a page section. You get the push effect, which I find really nice. You have the slide along effects. You can add save content, and this is just regular off-canvas content. So there are many use cases. You could use this with navigation. You could use this with a lead capture form. Sky's the limit. Next, let's take a look at the advanced menu. So I've already covered a few ways to add navigation to Elementor. This one is pretty nice, looks pretty classic here, but there are some nice options. One that I really like is the vertical menu. This is something I really miss, and I like the way it's already pre-styled. So yes, I can achieve that with within Elementor Pro and with some other add-ons, but here it's already pre-styled the way I want it. So especially on the mobile, it's pretty easy to tweak. And even if you're not using this on the mobile, but you also want to use it on the desktop, it's pretty handy. Let's say you have navigation on top, and then you have a lot of different elements here on the side that you need to cover, but you don't want to use tabs, then it's nice to have a vertical navigation. You could also have a permanent vertical navigation, and you could use this either on the left or the right hand side. So this is actually one of the widgets that could make me purchase Essential Addons for Elementor. Next, let's take a look at the feature list. So this is the feature list, and personally, I'm not too fan of those frames around the icons, but this is just a minor detail because you can use round shapes, you can use a bunch of different shapes. What I like is the fact that you can have the icons, the text, and then this line that goes through the different items and really make the whole thing styled like we can see here. And once again, there are many cases where I wanted to use that. Now you can achieve that with CSS, but as always, I'm always trying to find ways to shorten the time I spent on the different projects I'm working on and trying to use that time where it's really needed. This is one of the shortcuts that you can take, and especially because I haven't mentioned this yet in the video, but as I heard, the team behind Essential Addons for Elementor completely rewrote the plugin to make it very performance effective. And there are a few videos here on YouTube where people show the results with or without Essential Addons for Elementor, and I must say that they've done a pretty good job. Especially you can activate or deactivate each and every widget that you want to use or not use on your website. So let's say you only use a couple of widgets out of the 50 plus widgets that they feature, then you can only activate those widgets, and thus the performance of your website won't suffer. So a lot of talk, a bit outside the scope of the feature list, but I had to talk about it. So this is the feature list, and once again, this is something that, you know, it's really a plus for me and I could really use and I'm going to use in my projects. Okay, so now let's move to the dynamic content elements, and the first one is the post grid. So the post grid, here we have blog post with masonry. So at first it doesn't look like this is masonry, but if you click on load more, you can see, this is asymmetrical design. There seems to be a bug here with the load more button, but I'm sure this is something that they will cover in one of the next updates. Now, to be honest, you can achieve pretty much the same thing with Elementor Pro. So when I first looked at that, I was like, okay, it's nice, but I don't really see myself using it. Now, one thing I love is actually the blog post with no thumbnail. You know, the way they've styled it, it's a good foundation, and I would style it a bit differently. As always, I would put more padding, so I have more space between the edge and the elements. And I might tweak a few different things, but I've had some cases where I absolutely did not want to have a thumbnail image, and this is a nice to have addition. You can also have this style here without the profile picture, and then you can have just a blog post with the title and no excerpt and no meta. Next, let's take a look at the post timeline. So this is a classic vertical timeline, but once again, it's pretty nice. I like the way they style the line here with the dots. I'm pretty sure you can tweak the colors and some of the other settings, but I really like that. Next, let's take a look at the post block. So this is the post block, and actually what it does is that you can have a kind of different layout for the blocks, not just 3 columns, not just a grid. Here, as you can see, you have a couple of posts, then you have 3 posts, then you have 2 posts. Okay, let's load more, then you have 3. So you can really change the way it looks. Instead of being just classical, you can change the presets. Now here we have the post block overlay preset. And once again, you have the portfolio block. Now here you can have different meta position. So once again, I would style it a bit differently, but it's nice to have if you want to have a bit of a different blog post grid page. Next, let's take a look at the smart post list. So as you can see here, first we have the featured posts, and then we have the list of all the other posts. So this is pretty handy when you really want to focus on the latest posts or the most important posts that you want people to notice. Here I also like the category filter toolbar. So it's pretty interesting. You can also use the search, but when I tested it, it wasn't working. So I guess it's a bug, but I'm pretty sure they're going to fix that very soon. And if you have a blog with a lot of content, then it's pretty handy to have this filter and the search bar. And here we have the card style layout, very clean. Once again, there are a few tweaks that that I would do, but once again, this is a matter of personal taste. Now, that being said, I really love the white on light gray styling and the box shadow here. I think it's subtle enough and very well done. Next, let's take a look at the post carousel. So this is the post carousel, and as for the previous ones, you know, there's nothing really special about a carousel, and still the same comment about the fact that when I hover over one of the items, well, it's still switching. It's still moving. So once again, this is something that I would like to be covered. Okay, so next let's take a look at the content timeline. So let's scroll down. This one is pretty classical. I've seen it in a lot of different add-ons. But once again, if this is the only add-on pack that we're going to purchase, then it's really nice to have. First, okay, you see some color here, but as you scroll down, you can see that the color is filling the line and filling the icons. So definitely a nice addition to Essential Addons for Elementor. Next, let's take a look at the data table. So for example, here we have the default style with the sorting feature, and I like the sorting feature because you don't just want to have a table and not be able to play with the data. I think this is really nice to have. You can have order details. You can have a food menu, and I like that. I mean, you can really make things very visual. I like the fact that you can add here the images within the table. You could use it for an event schedule, for employee details, and so on. Next, let's take a look at a dynamic gallery. So here, as we can see, it's a gallery from custom content. So we can use a filter, and within the content here we have, for example, we have an image. Here we have a video, and here we have another image. It features a card style. You can also create a gallery from posts with the featured images, I guess. Next, let's take a look at the content ticker. Now, if you have a website with a lot of news, with a blog or maybe short messages, then this is something you see on a lot of websites with trending today, for example. You can have the same with a slide effect. It's not really readable here. And you can also have custom content. So you can make this move automatically, or you can allow people to just click on the arrows to see what's new on your website. Next, let's take a look at the Woo product grid. Now, to be honest, this is not something that would make me purchase Essential Addons for Elementor. It's nice to have, but to me it looks very basic. Now, there are so many widgets within that package of Essential Addons for Elementor, and to be honest, I haven't had the time to actually play with it. I mean, with the specific widget for WooCommerce. But by just looking at it, it looks a little bit less polished than the other widgets in this package. Now, if you really need to be able to style the WooCommerce product grid, and this is the only package you have, then it's nice to have. Next, let's take a look at the Woo product collections. So this is something that I really like. It's very simple. Maybe you can achieve that with other widgets, but I like the way they did it. Very clean, very nice, and once again, the little hover and little animation, I think it's subtle enough that it really has an impact, in my opinion. But let's be honest, it's also the choice of the pictures. I've already covered that in other videos, covered that in my course, and actually I will keep on covering that, because one thing I want you to grasp is that you can have the best tools in the world, but you need, for example, here in this example, you need to have an eye for the selection of the pictures. And if you don't have that eye, then you should delegate and get someone who does, because just imagine that widget with ugly pictures or pictures with too many elements in the picture. It wouldn't look as nice, because as you can see here, where the text is, it's always neutral, you know, there are not many elements behind, so it really stands out. So basically, this is something that I'm looking forward to use on one of my projects. Next, let's take a look at the advanced Google Map. Now, to be honest, I don't really use Google Maps ever since they changed their policy for embedding maps. Now, for the larger website, I think it can be quite interesting, but for smaller websites, you know, it's as easy to use a screenshot of a map and then redirect to Google Maps. So, you know, the owner of the website doesn't have to add their credit card information with Google. And most of the time anyways, personally, if I go on a website and I see a map, I mean, I'm not going to play with it and try to make something out of this map. You know, usually I want to be able to insert the address either in Waze or in Google Maps on my smartphone, but I'm not going to start playing with the map here. Now, if you absolutely need Google Maps, and you may need Google Maps for some projects, then it's nice to have, especially the fact that you can really style the colors of the maps. And personally, this is my favorite one, with shades of gray and then the pin in different colors. So there's a nice contrast, and in a glimpse of an eye, you know where you have to look on the map. Okay, congratulations if you're still here, because as I said, there's a lot of ground to cover. So now we're going to cover the marketing elements, and the first item will be the pricing table. So these are the pricing tables. Now, to be honest, I don't really see why I would choose that over the price tables from Elementor Pro. Most of the stylings doesn't really fit the styling that I like, except maybe this one here. But once again, this is really a matter of personal taste. So if this is the only add-on package that you're using, it's very nice to have. Next, let's take a look at the call to action widget. Now, this is something that you can pretty easily achieve in Elementor, or even without a dedicated widget. But if you're in a hurry, it's nice to have. Next, let's take a look at the price menu widget. So if you're at a restaurant, or if you're building a website for a client that has a restaurant, this is a really nice to have. Now, I remember before I was using Elementor, I've worked with a few other page builders, and I remember that for one project, I had to make a menu like this. Well, it wasn't that hard, but I had to do a lot of tweaking to get everything looking nice and right in place. And here you can just add the widget, add your images, and put the price, and it will take care of itself. So I really like that. And personally, I like minimalism, so I like this one here, and I like this one here also. So definitely a nice to have, especially if you're going to build website for restaurants, or any website basically that need to have pricing menu right on the website. Okay, so now let's move to the creative elements. Now, the first element is the interactive promo, as they call it. I would have called it just a banner or interactive banner. I've already seen actually the same effects in other add-ons, but this is something that I really use. So once again, this is something that could make me purchase Essential Addons for Elementor. And once again, they've used very specific names here instead of effect number 1, effect number 2. Yeah, here the first name, Roxy, Booba, Romeo, Sarah. Like you can see in many apps where you can, all the filters have a dedicated name, but then it's very easy to remember which one you prefer and which one you want to use for dedicated projects. Next, let's take a look at interactive cards. So interactive cards, for example, if I click here, then I have the content, and here I have the content. But the way I would really use it is, for example, like this, interactive cards. For example, you ask a question and you want people to interact with the card, and once they click, then you serve them the content. So there may be some use cases where it's really, really useful. Here, for example, you can have text and you can actually scroll the text within the block. So if you have a lot of content and you want to keep the page not too long, then this could be a nice trick. Next, let's take a look at the one-page navigation. So here you have the icons on the right-hand side, and as you click, it moves to the anchor with a smooth scrolling. So once again, this is pretty easy to do even without a widget. But once again, if you're in a hurry, or maybe not in a hurry, but you want to spend more time on other aspects of the project, then it's really a nice one to have. Next, let's look at the image comparison widget. So let's take a look. So here I'm just dragging along. And this is a very neat effect that actually I'm using currently in one of the projects when I want to show before and after pictures. So definitely a nice to have. Next, let's take a look at the image accordion. Actually, I really love that one. This is something I've already used and I will keep on using. One thing I wish though, and I haven't seen that in any add-on package, I would like all elements to have either a text visible, even if it's just a minimal version of the text first, or maybe a load more or a call to action, whatever. But the fact that there's no text, some people won't know that they have to interact with it. So I would love to, at least to have the possibility to add text in the normal state. So here it's on click. And this one I really like, especially when you want to show a couple of products. I think it's very beautiful. So this is one of the widgets that could make me purchase Essential Addons for Elementor. Next, let's take a look at image hotspots. And this is pretty handy if you're selling products. You can have the hotspot with some tooltips. So definitely, if you're into e-commerce, this is a very nice addition to your tool set. Next, let's take a look at the image scroller widget. So as you can see here, I'm hovering and the image is scrolling on its own. Here we have the same one, but with a very fast effect. Here we have the horizontal image scroller on hover. And here you actually need to drag it yourself like that. So in the first one above you was doing it automatically. And here I'm the one actually scrolling. So especially this one, the first one, is pretty handy when, for example, you're showing a portfolio and you're showing different captures, different screenshots of the website that you created, but you don't want to show just the hero section. You want to show the whole page. So this is a very nice. So this is a very nice addition to Essential Addons for Elementor. Now let's take a look at the countdown. So once again, it looks like a regular countdown, and if you have Elementor Pro, you already have a countdown widget. But the difference with this widget is that they have an expire action after countdown option within Elementor, which means that you can say that when the countdown arrives at 0, then you can mark it as expired, and then you can trigger an action. So the action could be a message, like you can see here on the left hand side. It could be a redirection link, so you could redirect to another page, or it could be a save template. So that's very neat because I don't know about you, but if you already seen those websites where you land on the page and you see a countdown, a counter at 0, you know, and you have some hints by looking at the different posts on the page that it's been at 0 for months. So they kind of lose credit here. So here we can really make it automatic. Once it expires, you can choose the action that you want to be triggered, and that's really neat because you can send to another page. You can make it so that the visitor will perform an action while you sleep. Now let's take a look at the divider widgets. And as you can see, we have dash, solid, dotted, and double dividers. So pretty classic here. But the thing that I like here is the plain vertical dividers. Now, of course, you can achieve that with a border or with CSS. But once again, it's nice to have. You can have dividers with text, with icons, and with images. Next, let's take a look at the fancy text widget. So there's already a kind of similar widget within Elementor Pro. So yeah, right out of the bat, I don't really see the point of using that one over Elementor Pro, but they have a bunch of different effects here. So definitely a nice to have in your toolbox. Next, let's take a look at the counter widget. So here we have a regular counter widget. It's very well done. Now, nothing fancy. You can achieve that with Elementor Pro. Next, let's take a look at the filterable gallery. Now, we've already seen that gallery in a previous widget, but here it focuses on the filter. So if you have content and you don't have too many filters, then this is a nice way to let the user filter the content in a very visual way. Next, let's take a look at the Lightbox and Modal widget. Well, if you know my channel, you know that I really absolutely love Elementor pop-ups, and for most pop-ups, I would only use that for the moment. I mean, this is, yeah, in my opinion, the best pop-up maker on the market. Now, that being said, I would use actually the Lightbox modal from Essential Addons for Elementor, especially for one thing, it's the YouTube video. So if I launch a YouTube video, so I'm gonna start playing it. And then if I click outside, it closes, and then it closes the video. And this may change, but when I first started doing that with Elementor pop-ups, it would close the pop-up, but it would keep on playing the video. So this is definitely something that's very useful because it can be pretty annoying if you close a pop-up and then the video keeps playing, you keep hearing sound. So the only way to stop it is to refresh the page. So this is definitely something that I could see myself using. Next, let's take a look at the flip carousel. Once again, I believe this is something you can achieve in Elementor Pro. I can see some use cases where it could be pretty interesting if you're selling products and you want to showcase them in a different way, or even for a portfolio. So here you interact with it by clicking on the different visual elements. And in this one here, it's actually automatic, so it will move on its own. Here you have the flat carousel style, so it's the same as the first one, but the way it's presented is a bit different. So you click on the next elements, and here it's a wheel style, so pretty original too. And last but not least, in the creative element is the progress bar widget. So this looks like a pretty classic widget. But if we scroll down, one thing that I like, and that's very unique, at least unique at the time of recording this video, because I see that all those add-ons maker keep on copying themselves. So I'm pretty sure that this is going to pop up in other packages. It's the semicircle here. I think it's pretty nice, pretty unique. And I like also the box progress bar, because here they're using a very large progress bar with a lot of white space in between. But I could see myself using several of these, especially if I want to create a kind of infographic on a web page and I want it to be moving to some subtle animations. So this is something that I'm definitely going to use in my projects. Next, let's take a look at the form styler elements. So the first one is MailChimp, then we have Contact Form 7, Gravity Forms, Ninja Forms, WeForms, Caldera Forms, and WP Forms. Now, to be honest, most of the time I use Elementor Pro form widget, which I think it's really brilliant. And when I'm not using Elementor Pro's native widget, and most of the time I use Gravity Forms. There are way too many forms, even outside of these. So usually what I like to do is want to find a nice plugin that I know how to use and performs well. Well, most of the time I will stick with it, but once in a while I like to try new ones, of course. Now, for the time being, I feel that Gravity Forms is pretty solid, and in the other cases, then I will use the native widgets from Elementor Pro. So let's take a look at a few of these, but actually all of these actually look the same. The idea here is that you can really style the forms with essential add-ons for Elementor. Now, looking at the styles here, this is not something that I particularly like aesthetically, so I would definitely tweak it. And I'm going to show you a few of the examples, but most of these look actually the same. They're actually exactly the same. Well, not this one, which is a bit nicer in my opinion, but this is just a matter of styling. So with most of these widgets, you can actually pretty much style it the way you want. So next, let's move on to the social elements, and we are almost done for this episode. And the first one is the Twitter feed. So here we have a masonry view of the tweets that you want to show on the page, and here you have a Twitter feed in list view. And of course, you can also use the Twitter feed carousel. Next, let's take a look at the Twitter feed carousel, and actually we've already seen it in the previous widgets. So once again, this is just a carousel with a few styling options. And last but not least in this section is the Instagram feed. So the Instagram feed is pretty nice, especially I like this gallery with no padding between the various elements. So I think it's really nice. You also have the thumbnail gallery, so it's a bit smaller. And last, you can also use the masonry gallery, although by looking at it, it doesn't really look like masonry, just look like a regular symmetrical grid with some spacing between the various elements. Now let's move on to the extensions. The first extension is the particles. Now when it comes to particles, you must really be careful because pretty quickly it can look pretty amateurish. So it really depends the way you do it. But if you know what you're doing, you can achieve some nice effects. Now, as you can see here, it's slowing down and it's a bit jittery. So once again, just make sure you know what you're doing, especially if you don't want to make people go away from your website and if you don't want to look like an amateur. Next, let's look at the Parallax extension. Now, to be honest, ever since Elementor Pro released the motion effects, I mean, you don't really need other tools for Parallax. Now, if I look at this one here, it's nice, but I don't see what it does that I couldn't do with Elementor Pro. But it's a nice to have addition in a toolbox, especially because you can disable this extension if you don't need it. And last but not least, the advanced tooltip. Now, to be honest, by looking at the demo, I don't really see the difference with the other tooltip that we saw earlier on in this video, but I guess there are a few more options. So the placement, top, bottom, left, right, the animations, you can scale it, fade it, you can add perspective, you can add arrows, duration, delay, distance, you can have click and hover trigger events, and you can have small, regular, and large sizes. Now, if you're interested in purchasing essential add-ons for Elementor and/or Elementor Pro, you'll find links in the description of this video. Now, to be crystal clear, these are affiliate links, which means that I do get a commission if you purchase a license after clicking on one of my links. But one, I only recommend essential add-ons for Elementor and Elementor Pro because I love and use those products daily. And two, commissions actually help me support this channel and create free content. So I hope that this video showed you why I think essential add-ons for Elementor is a nice addition to your Elementor toolbox. Now, if there are other WordPress and Elementor reviews that you'd like me to cover, please let me know in the comments. And by the way, you find the companion blog post on my website, Casino.com. And of course, you'll find a direct link in the description of this episode. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, as it really helps growing this channel. And if you know someone that could benefit from it, please share it now. If you're not a subscriber yet, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel and smash the notification bell so that you don't miss anything. Now, if you want to brand, market, and grow your business in the digital age, then make sure you subscribe to my email newsletter so that you never miss a share of digital alchemy, as well as tips, tools, services, and case studies that can help you grow your business online. So that's it for this episode. I hope to see you around, and in the meantime, don't forget to invest
in your success.